I
scream.
You
Scream.
We all
Scream
for
honey vanilla
ice cream. Hello, Hearties. Welcome to our very first episode recap of season 9 entitled In Like a Lion.
Yes, and if there is one phrase that you could say about this episode, I would say it's the berries.
That's the berries.
That's the berries, right? And I promised everyone that I would say that all the time now. So there you go. There's the first time.
Oh, Hearties, what have you done? No, I blame you for that, Sarah. Oh my goodness.
I didn't come up with it.
No, you didn't.
I believe John Tinker wrote this episode, so we'll have to thank him.
So I have John Tinker to blame for my partner's new catchphrase. Perfect.
Well, really, it was Hrothgar's like perfect execution of the line.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That sold it.
You know what? Let's just go there. We've already put our foot in that door. Let's just go there. I was so there for that song and dance number.
I did think that was probably your shining moment.
Other than Rosemary naming off all of the Broadway shows, none of which I had ever heard of.
It was a good episode for you.
I had never heard of any of them.
Right up your alley.
But yes, it was right up my alley. But oh my goodness.
Ned and Florence. Oh my gosh.
Maybe we should call them Froyo now. Now that they own the ice cream parlor.
This has been a long time coming. I think people have said that they should do this for a while now.
Well, and they sold ice cream in the Mercantile. And at one point, Elizabeth had ice cream parlor on the list of shops that for the career week that the students can go and shadow, but it doesn't show it, and so that must have closed down, and now the Yosts have taken on it's a drugstore.
As popular as ice cream is in a small town that has a lot of cold weather, I can see where combining the ice cream with the pharmacy is probably a better business move.
Well, and now there's soda too. So you've got pharmaceuticals, you've got soda, and you've got ice cream and ice cream sodas. So
I do have to say, I mean, Ned already had kind of the key place in town with everything, and now he's just like spreading out. So he's gonna be like he's gonna have the monopoly on Hope Valley.
You said last week that he was the most well-informed man in town, but my thing is that the only other people who know more than Ned knows, I think, would be a bartender at the saloon. But now you've got the soda fountain. And that's
gonna hear better gossip.
And you're gonna hear better gossip, and that's where anyone who doesn't drink beer goes. Sugar is my alcohol, so you get me going on sugar and I'll tell you anything.
Well, the thing about ice cream too and soda, you get the people who do drink beer that want that also at other times. So you get everybody.
You're getting
everybody wants to come there.
Who doesn't want dessert?
You're not. Although if you're Lee, you're gonna have to fight Rosemary to get the ice cream. Apparently, I didn't realize he was on a diet, but apparently ice cream's off limits.
The back injury, he had to.
The back injury got it. I thought he looked great this season. We looked like he was recovered and doing quite well.
And hopefully that means that Cavan is all recovered too, because I don't know if any of you saw our interview with Cavan when Casey and I interviewed him, but he really did hurt his back. And so Erin, being the darling that she is and the dear friend that she immediately said, let's see how we can doctor the script, if you'll pardon the pun. Let's see how we can doctor the script to make it so Lee can have a back injury so you can take it easy in your scenes. And so he was truly recovering from a back injury. He was not just being a fabulous actor, which he is already.
Which he is, but it was still a great thing for Lee to be going through. It was fun.
So hopefully Lee's okay, Cavan's okay. You know, I'm very hopeful of that.
So to cover the Yost storyline, though, they're opening this ice cream parlor and pharmaceutical. My grandfather was a pharmacist, so
so you have history.
Yeah. But my favorite, so when they're planning this big surprise, I loved that Ned said, doesn't anyone in Hope Valley like a good surprise? Because I'm like, you know more secrets than anybody. So you don't like surprise. You never have a surprise. You know everything, Ned. So I thought that was just like a really funny line for him to deliver.
That I didn't even think about that. That is so funny. And when they're getting ready, in what would you call those? Would you call those circus costumes, or would you call them barbershop quartet costumes?
I hadn't even thought about what they'd be called.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call them.
I wasn't thinking circus. I was thinking more of the barbershop, just because they were singing and dancing and performing.
But they looked like they could have been like a ticket taker at a circus performance or something like that. But this is where Florence had my heart. Florence says, you look perfectly stupendous. And Ned says, I feel a little silly. Are you sure? And she said, well, except for your beard. I'm like, oh, my girl right there. And then Ned gives the sweetest compliment. You look sublime. It was so cute because they looked comfortable enough that they had been married for decades, but you could still tell that they were acting like newlyweds. It was
definitely
that sweet balance.
Yeah. No, I wrote down they are adorbs. Because it was like they look like these two cute little kids with crushes on each other. Like it was just the sweetest little interactions.
Well, except for that beard. But
him trying to keep up with her, him being afraid he wouldn't be able to keep up with her.
I know.
With her dancing.
That's cute. But yeah, Florence, you're my girl.
And obviously he is still doing beekeeping if they're doing the honey vanilla ice cream.
Yes.
I think that seemed to be the hint that was being laid down there.
Well, and Robert asked about the beehives. He thought that they were,
I don't know what he thought they were, but
yeah, Ned said, you'll find out with everyone else after he mentions the beehives. Like, does Robert think that they're putting the beehives in a shop? That would be kind of dangerous.
Right.
But yes, the honey vanilla ice cream looks to be a Yost blend.
Specialty. What they will be known for.
All right. So one thing that I loved about how this episode started is she immediately begins, Elizabeth, her narration with a Jane Austen quote. I'm like, yes.
Personally, it was just so great to hear that narrative aspect coming back because it's not in every episode.
Yeah, that's true.
And it really kind of sets that tone for continuing with things that are familiar and yet still, bringing in new things as well. So I thought for a season premiere, it just really set the tone, and it was a nice opener.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, she says there's nothing like staying home for real comfort. And, anytime Elizabeth talks about how much she loves it in Hope Valley, especially after us going through season 2 recently, it's very nice to know that she truly does love it in Hope Valley. It has become her home. She was away for a month visiting her family, but she's back. She's home. This is where she belongs. So let's talk about that adorable traveling companion of hers. Oh my gosh.
Talk about casting. Welcome to Hope Valley Highland. What a great addition to the cast.
My heart.
He was adorable. His little voice.
Hi, buddy.
I love how he repeats things too, which I'm sure is partially just a child actor thing of like, it's easy to get him to repeat things than learn lines. But at the same time, it's like an adorable little character trait of Jax to be just like repeating what people say. Like kids do that.
Yeah,
so,
they do.
Just like, awesome.
And having a son myself around that age who is named Jack, it's very, very cute. And he was precious. He was bright-eyed. He was bushy-tailed. He was all over the place. When little Jack in Hope Valley, because I have a little Jack too. So when little Jack in Hope Valley was going, balloon, balloon, and you see this huge balloon, my Jack, he's standing there watching with me and he goes, that is a hot air balloon. I went, where did you learn hot air balloon? I'm like, yes, it is, Jack. So it was just,
that is too funny.
Fun that the two of them were saying it almost at the exact same time. And it was just one of those you gotta be there moments, I guess.
No, it totally makes sense. It's so cute to see those like comparisons between the kids in our own lives and the ones we see on screen. He's definitely going to be a fun character this season.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we're gonna start looking for the little Jack scenes.
Absolutely. Although, as Lucas says, we're really not going to be able to call him little much longer here. Nope. He's getting big.
And apparently he was quite heavy lifting down. Okay, speaking of lifting down, did it look to you like they had to fudge it a little bit, like they couldn't quite get the shot because the camera moved? And so I was wondering, did the hours of daylight or the hours that Highland could work because he's so young, did they run out because the camera angle when he was lifting him down, I was like, is that
even a kid? I didn't notice it at the time. I'll have to look that when I rewatch again.
I mean, that is nothing to be critical about because it's a very real thing.
It's a reality.
Yeah.
It's a reality of filming. Yeah.
And you would not believe how long getting a 10-second shot, if you don't have any film experience, you would not believe how long getting a 10-second shot could take, because you've got to take the multiple camera angles and you've got to do multiple takes. And if you run out of daylight or you run out of hours that a child is allowed to work, then you gotta fudge it a little bit. So
yeah. No, I'll have to look for that. Definitely. Okay. Since we just reviewed season 2, this probably hit me harder than it would have if we hadn't just reviewed season 2.
All right, lay it on me.
Mrs. Thatcher made Taffy herself.
I was just going to say that. Mother made Taffy with her own hands?
I was like, wait, your mother? Whose mother?
You're not saying
Are you
You're not talking
to
about
yourself
Jack's
as
mother,
mother?
and you're not talking about
Are you
Jack's
just
mother.
talking about yourself in third person?
Oh my goodness. Maybe
No
mother,
offense to any of the characters or actors. But yeah, it surprised me.
maybe mother had taffy made, and or maybe she was in the
She
kitchen when it was
supervised.
happening.
She supervised. But it did bring up the point that think about how different so many people, not all people for sure,
Yeah.
how different so many people are as parents and then as grandparents.
Oh yes.
And quite possibly this could be one of those times where all of a sudden you have this sweet little grandchild and you want to just get right in there and do all the fun stuff.
Yeah, and you want to
so,
win them over. And
my goodness,
what's the best way to win a 3-year-old over?
Sugar. Sticky sugar. Which is the second part of my comment, is there's Rosemary's sticky children.
There's Rosemary's sticky children.
Children are so sticky. Yes, here's an example.
Here is a prime example, and darn it all, she wasn't there to see it.
I know, goodness. Maybe maybe we can have more taffy later. But I am very hopeful that at some point, haven't heard anything about this season, but maybe season 10, crossing my fingers. I would love to see Elizabeth's parents as grandparents on the show. I want to see that. I want to see how they have melted and how they have changed and softened
so much
for their grandchild.
So much. I want to see Grandma and Grandpa Thatcher. You know, just like Jack said when he went to go and ask for Mr. Thatcher's blessing, he said, "These will be your grandchildren bouncing on your knee." You know, I'm like, yes, let's see that. Let's
see the bouncing on the knee, please.
Please, let's
come
see
full
that
circle.
bouncing.
Exactly. So
okay. Let's go to Lee and Rosemary for a minute, because they haven't lost a beat. They haven't missed a step. We knew they wouldn't, but
they can still talk just as fast.
You said that this was my episode, and there's another line that, yes, this is so my episode. When she says, "I've never had so much fun as I've had being the editor-in-chief of the Valley Voice." No, let me clarify that. The most fun while not on stage. I'm like, preach, girl.
Oh my gosh, the callbacks. Oh my gosh, Lee bringing up that he had not built her theater. I was like, thank you for at least acknowledging this, because it still weighs on me. I still feel like the theater needs to be built.
Well,
I guess I don't.
You know that I agree with you 100%, but the fact that it's not there and the story has moved on without it is fine and great. And I love what she said, because he says, even though I kind of broke my promise, kinda. But then,
right.
She says, if you hadn't, I wouldn't be here.
And she still has her name on a bigger sign than he does. So she's probably happy about that.
She's got the bigger headline.
Above. She's got the headline sign and he's got the little sign underneath.
She's still the headliner.
Too funny.
Oh my gosh. But okay, can we talk for a second about that scene in the office when he's covered in dirt? So my first question was, where did he give the speech? Because he said, "I gave a great speech. You would be very proud of me." But where was it?
It's Mayor of Hope Valley.
You can't have gone too far.
You don't need to go to Buxton or
Benson Hills.
any of these neighboring towns because they would have their own mayor.
Yeah. So
that was really confusing. I don't.
That was
How are
confusing.
you so far away that you got lost?
Maybe it's the outskirts, the farm areas. But that can't be too, I don't know.
That was a little confusing.
In Little House on the Prairie, Walnut Grove is the town, and you're still considered Walnut Grove when you live a mile or two out of town.
Yeah.
And cars didn't go nearly as fast, so it could still take a while to get out there, even by car. So that's my only guess.
That was a fabulous scene for Kevin to play this like disheveled,
rumpled
version of himself. And I loved as he was leaving and Nathan's all concerned, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally fine." He's just,
the other thing is that it was kind of fun seeing Lee looking so casual. He's always dressed to the nines, and his hair was kind of messed up, and he wasn't in a full suit, and
it was like half untucked shirt.
Yeah. It was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to see him looking, and his hair wasn't greased into place. It was kind of fun. I liked it.
Yes.
And then of course
go get cleaned up
before
your constituents see you.
Go get cleaned up. But when I loved when he said, "You really do believe in me, don't you?" Oh. I mean, it's true that as the only newspaper woman in town, that she does need to have some impartiality, but in maintaining impartiality, she could really hurt her marriage if she took it too far. And it was so sweet for him to realize that she is behind him 100% in all seriousness, all joking aside. It just, and then of course he brought back the light moment with "You love me." I think that was my favorite line in the whole episode.
Oh,
I just loved it.
It was, of course, it was adorable. I prefer their banter. So my favorite with Lee and Rosemary was, "Didn't you get my note?" And
I was just gonna go there. So yes, please go.
I found it. I found the note I left you, which clearly she didn't leave him anywhere.
In the pad.
And very useful. Thank you.
And "You have my vote and my love forever." And then what does he say? "That's the nicest no I've ever gotten."
That was a very nice no.
That was a very nice no, which, Rosemary doesn't always give the nicest no's. So good job, lady.
She's grown so much.
She's grown so much. She knows how to give nice and diplomatic no's even to her husband.
Right.
But, just seeing them again and seeing the way they interact, I love them. I think that's probably why I loved him saying "you love me," because I love them.
100%.
Okay, so since the soda fountain and pharmacy hasn't quite opened up yet at this point in the episode, the gossiping is still happening in the saloon. So we have this lovely little gossip circle.
It's not going to stop happening in the saloon, but there's just going to be more places to gossip.
But we have this lovely little gossip circle of Molly, Fiona, and Faith. And Molly and Fiona are very lightly teasing about why Faith hasn't called Carson.
So this is interesting because it's a couple months later since he left. And so it's kind of tough. Like, are they implying that they haven't spoken at all? Has it just been a while? So there's a lot of kind of unknown. So it's kind of tough to know where Faith is really at, other than her really trying to push that conversation aside.
Right. Well, and it's still the first episode. I'm sure we'll hear more. So,
Definitely.
Yeah, but
and she's definitely concerned about keeping up with his expectations.
Oh yeah, and her own.
And her own. Yes.
Because
it is funny, as Molly pointed out, she has run this infirmary by herself before.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
You know, now she's a doctor. She's got more knowledge, more experience.
She's got this.
Yeah. She might need to hire somebody to hang her signs for her in the future. Could use some work with a hammer, but
she could. But you know, we don't want those hands to get injured themselves, because we need them to be healing hands.
and I almost cried when Henry called her doctor.
Oh, I know that hit you hard. I loved it.
It was so sweet because it was so casual. Well, it's like, it wasn't like a teasing or like, oh, you're the doctor now.
Yeah.
It was just casual, in passing. Nice to see you, doctor. And it was just like, oh.
Well, and that reminded me of when he called Clara Mrs. Stanton. You know, and it was in a normal conversation. And I was, you know, so I went, oh, Henry is really good about using proper titles, you know.
And meaningful titles, because he very well could have called her Faith by her first name.
Oh, easy.
And he called Molly by her first name.
Yeah.
He didn't say Doctor and Mrs. Sullivan. So it was very sweet. I loved that. Oh
yeah, that was awesome. One thing I want to mention about this little gossip circle is when poor Hickam comes in.
Oh,
I mean, the only problem is, according to Twitter, a whole lot of people did this. So we have photographic evidence of many cast members. So who was it?
I wonder if we will find out who really did it in Hope Valley. Who really painted a mustache onto Hickam's posters and wrote "not wanted" at the top of his campaign poster.
So, but the thing that made me laugh more than anything, I don't know why this made me laugh so hard, but you know, Faith says, "Ever thought of growing a mustache?" Then Molly says, "Like Nathan?" And then Fiona goes, "Not like Nathan." I was like, are those Kayla's real feelings coming out?
There. So if you peruse Twitter, Kayla's made some really great mustache tweets that are clearly, you know, trying to elicit a certain response from Kevin, whether that's her actual feelings or whether she's just really trying to tease him. I don't know. But it's definitely clear to me that they gave her that line for a reason. Whether or not she asked for it or not remains to be seen. I could see her asking for the line if it was maybe completely given to someone else. She's like, "Can I say that, please?" Like, I could see that. But it also makes sense from Fiona, because there is this connection between Fiona and Mike. And so that could be like more of a like, oh, she's kind of taking on a comment that a girlfriend might take about your appearance. So it made sense that
she's the barber in town, so she doesn't want to have to cut it off later. You know? And she wants Nathan to come in to the barber shop so that she can shave off that mustache for him, and he's not doing it. So she's very frustrated about that. I don't know. That's just I'm just spouting.
And to finish off that scene, though, I also want to say it very clearly seems to me like Hickam is not being taken seriously in the campaign.
I know.
And a lot of things that I'm hearing, like a lot of things that Rosemary was reporting on, it really seems like the polls are showing it's going between Lee and Bill. So poor Hickam. I didn't necessarily think he was going to win because the other two characters are much more well known in the town. But it's still a little disappointing, and I feel for him. And I do see him potentially being a great candidate in the future, years down the road.
Don't give up, Hickam.
Don't give up. Ben. But apparently, maybe fire safety shouldn't be your key campaigning point. Although, since we've seen scenes of a fire happening in Hope Valley this year, maybe it should have been. Maybe people should have paid more attention to Hickam's fire safety plan.
One thing to kind of close this up is it was nice to see that people who are not there have not been forgotten.
Exactly. They talked about Carson a whole bunch in multiple scenes. Different characters brought him up, mentioned him. Ned and Florence mentioned him. It's nice to have that continuity, because in real life, if somebody moves away, you still mention them from time to time.
Yeah. And who else moved away that got mentioned?
Oh, Clara. Oh, our newest newlyweds. Well, okay, not our newest newlyweds.
Not anymore. Our youngest newest.
Yes. But again, good for them. You've got a nice story. We know what's happened to them. We know why they didn't come back. They've been given 75 acres of land.
For free?
Tough to pass that up.
Can't do it. I love how Joseph said it. When the land is free, son, something like that is hard to pass up. And it's true. Even if you have to move to Montana.
Yeah. So I did have to replay it though, because I totally misheard it and thought that it said they had 75 chickens. And I was like, oh, that seems excessive. I don't know why you would need that many. So I felt better when I rewound it. Oh, okay. 6 chickens. That makes more sense.
And a dog and a goat.
Unless you're like running a chicken farm. Like that's... Anyway.
Oh goodness.
Speaking of the Canfields.
Yes, let's go to the Canfields.
Now, quick question, because they moved into a row house, but they were all eating in the back room of the cafe, having breakfast before going to school and work. Do we suppose that potentially they've now moved into the apartment with the cafe?
My thought was that they were just at the cafe because Minnie had to go to the cafe and she had to start for the breakfast rush. And so I just assumed that the whole family went to the cafe together. Minnie fixed breakfast for them there, but maybe they did. But I don't think Joseph would be very keen on packing up everything again just after they got settled in the row house. So
unless... Sounds like Minnie has a business proposition on her mind.
Which I think is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. She's the perfect person to take over the cafe, especially if Bill thinks he's going to be mayor. He can't be the only judge in Hope Valley running the cafe without Clara now. And then the mayor as well. I mean,
that's a good question. I still kind of feel like Lee's gonna take the mayor's job.
Believe me, I think the same. But from Bill's point of view, if he thinks he's gonna be mayor, then he can't handle all 3 things by himself. Yeah. So no, I firmly believe and I firmly think that Lee is going to be and should be mayor. That's my own personal opinion. Apparently it's a unanimous opinion here on Hardy's Hotline.
So anyway, if the Canfields buy the cafe, which I love that it's called Abigail's. I kind of want it to stay Abigail's forever, but I kind of think it could morph. And of course, Minnie's would be adorable. But I also feel like it should be like Canfield Cafe.
Oh, that would be adorable. I saw your hashtag
Or Cafe Canfield.
Cafe
Make it
Canfield. That's a good one. That's a
would
good
be
one.
a little more hip. So we'll see. But then they could move in there.
Very true.
That would make a lot more sense if they owned it.
Yeah, if they owned it, it would make a lot more sense. Yeah, who is living upstairs now? Because Jesse and Clara are gone and Abigail's gone. So is Bill living upstairs?
Unless Bill's there, that's possible. Who knows? We've never seen Bill's home.
No. So if Bill is living upstairs, then the Canfields and Bill could trade. Bill can have the row house, and
that could be intriguing.
Yeah, the Canfields could have the cafe.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Angela for a second. Sweet Angela. I really loved how much they featured her intelligence. I mean, of course, leave it to Elizabeth to turn a distraction into a lesson. It's floating, which means that it's filling up with something lighter than air. Like, oh, only a teacher would turn a distraction into a lesson. But good for her.
You gotta get those teachable moments.
Yes, indeed. And then
clearly
Angela,
long division was not gonna happen.
Long division was so far from the picture in their minds. But then Angela answers, hydrogen is lighter than air. And you can see how proud Elizabeth is of her. And then, we see Angela walking with Robert in Allie's absence. I don't know what's going on there, but
that's not an issue when Allie comes back.
I hope not. But
but it was very sweet to see them just being friends and having walking. Those connections, like, really important.
Well, and it shows that what Angela and Minnie were so afraid of, her not fitting into town, it shows that there was no need to worry, because there she is, just walking down the sidewalk with Robert and sharing what I believe would be a mashed potato ice cream.
it appears from social media that yes.
Well, because that's what they used last time they had ice cream from the Mercantile, so I assumed it was the same thing. So
yes, there's been a few posts about it.
Okay. Sarah has been on Twitter more than I have since. And then we see Cooper. He's starting to act out a little bit. Naughty boy.
Somebody's getting into trouble.
Oh,
pushing the limits.
Did you see an idea kind of spark in Elizabeth's mind when Angela said he's always better behaved when you're around, Mrs. Thornton? She kind of went.
There was definitely a look. I took it to be more of a wondering, like wonder why that's happening.
I saw it as an idea brewing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but it was definitely interesting because not only did Elizabeth witness him and Timmy trying to slingshot the hot air balloon,
which if it had hit, I know it's small and those things are pretty durable, but I mean,
but were they that?
It could have potentially been a very bad thing.
Yeah. So not only did she witness that, but now she's hearing about a whole bunch of other hijinks that have been happening.
Shenanigans. I have to say the word in Casey's absence.
Uh-oh. And then we witness challenges to his dad of even wanting to talk to his dad when friends are around.
Yep.
So,
and he won't do his chores.
It's such a tough age. Oh,
yeah. Well, and I think now that they're settled, because apparently they've moved around a lot. So now that they're settled and he feels that, now he is stretching and widening his horizons, and he has friends other than his sister now. And
so now he's pushing his sister away.
And just pushing the limits, because now his family isn't all he's got. I think that in the past his family was all he had, but now he's growing up, he's having boy experiences in a good and steady and stable hometown, and so now he feels safe. So out comes the bad behavior. He's been saving it all up.
Yep. Oh, something tells me we'll be dealing with this for a little while.
So let's go to somebody else who has behaved very badly in this episode. So badly that it got Cooper's mom to bring him breakfast behind bars.
Gosh, how many times have we seen people bring food to Henry in jail?
Well, somebody new moved into town who's a cook. Gotta repeat the scene and say some prayers, and oh goodness. Okay,
Henry,
so before we talk about the incident or incidents plural, let's talk about how haggard Henry looks. I mean, last season he drove off saying nothing is important, not the oil company, not the saloon, and he just drove off. We assume to go see Christopher, but we don't know.
And we still don't.
Yeah, we still don't. And he comes back with a full outgrown beard, and not a trim, nice looking beard the way he had in season 1. And his hair is all, it looked like it was about neck length. And it looks like he had a rough time while he was gone. And I'm wondering what's going on with him. Is he still dealing with those health issues that Carson was trying so hard to treat him for when he was still there? You know, I just, we don't know. There are a lot of questions.
We don't know. There's a lot of questions. And he definitely goes back and forth between the attitude of nothing matters and really wanting control. I think to make things right.
Oh,
to make things better. Like I feel like he's got this internal fight about giving up and pushing through and working hard and making it better. Yeah. But when you leave your job unexpectedly,
and you leave someone in charge,
when you say you're gone and you don't care about it, I take that to mean you're done.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And
if I was Hickam, I would think that was my job now.
Amen.
Not that I'm just covering while he's gone. So I would think that he had control over everything. I would think that he still should have control over everything, even now that Henry's back. Like, you don't just come back and slide back into everything. No. So that is interesting, that dynamic. And then what I also really found interesting was Lucas's dynamic around this whole concern, because he does seem to genuinely care about Gowan and is really concerned about his well-being as well as doing what's right for the company. And he just truly seemed very disappointed in the way Henry was behaving, but also in the whole situation. Like, I don't think he would have pursued this conversation with Jerome Smith if he had known all of the backstory.
Oh, completely not. Because I mean, he asks Fiona, you knew? And he looks very upset. And
yeah, and I think he would have said, no, that's off limits. Even if he thought Henry was never coming back. I still think he would have been like, we're not gonna go there.
Yeah. And that connection, so Jerome Smith hired Henry to supervise the mine for
Now
the mining
again,
company.
Now again, going back to our recent review of season 2.
Yes.
Henry ended up supervising the mine in Coal Valley, kind of as a scapegoat for a situation that was happening with the company in Hamilton.
Yep.
So
A racketeering charge.
A racketeering charge. So that certainly does paint Jerome in a very negative light, potentially.
Yeah.
To have been involved in that.
He could have put it, I mean, he said, I engaged Henry, but that's the nice way of saying.
That's the nice way of saying I made him go.
Yeah, that's the nice way of saying I shipped him off to Alaska. You know?
Yeah, because I didn't want, I had to get rid of him. Right. I had to make it look like we weren't having this whole scandal.
Yeah. So we will see what happens with Henry more in this coming season, because I don't know about you, my dear friend, but this has got my curiosity churning.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So there are 4 people that we haven't really talked a whole lot about yet. Okay, I'm just going to start by saying this one thing. Can Nathan please catch a break? First, we get a woman who is emotionally unavailable to him, and now we get a woman who is potentially still married.
Really? Okay, so let's just dive into this.
Yeah.
So Maysu is in Hope Valley now.
Yeah. And she snuck in under the guise of being a man.
Super mysterious circumstances.
Little Jax.
That might be my favorite scene.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Hysterical.
I gotta say, I'm not sold that she's married or was married to Mr. Lewis.
You're not? Because she was dodging it terribly.
Because they were assuming she was, and she was dodging it. That's why I think she isn't.
Well, and Faith called Jeffrey her husband. And Faith
only after, so she has met Maysu at the college, but she didn't recommend Maysu for the pharmaceutical job.
No, she recommended
Jeffrey. And she knew that Maysu worked with Jeffrey. She never once, the one time she referred to Jeffrey as Maysu's husband was in a question mark form after Ned and Florence had said they were married. And so I'm just saying I'm not sold. I'm not saying
it didn't sound like a question mark to me. It sounded like she said, I recommended her husband, Jeffrey. So it didn't sound like a question mark to me. So I guess.
But when she said it, either Florence or Ned repeated, if that is her husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's where the question mark came in.
And if Faith knew they weren't, or if Faith knew they were, she would have challenged that. So I'm just saying, to me, it's still very much a mystery, and I'm very interested to see where that goes in terms of what her past and what her reasoning is for this.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting.
But she's a pharmacist.
She's graduated. She is certified as a pharmaceutical chemist, I believe.
There you go.
And has gone through years of training for this. It's a big deal. And graduated top of her class. So I'm very intrigued to see another strong female character. I hope that, and assume probably that the past issue will will be resolved in an amicable way because it's
really
Hope Valley. But I'm very intrigued, and I love just how sneaky she was coming in. Nathan has a pretty good idea that was her who rode by him in such a hurry as he introduced
figured
himself
it out immediately
and was quite intrigued by that. And so I'm really interested to see how that all plays out. We know that they at least have a budding friendship based on scenes we've seen advertised, but depending upon what her marital status is, we'll see where that goes.
Oh my god!
But she seems like a really fun character who's going to bring a little bit of mystery and intrigue this season.
Yeah, she's the mysterious character instead of Lucas now. You know, she's the one riding in very mysteriously. All right, and speaking of Lucas, shall we go to Elizabeth and Lucas?
I don't know where to start.
I don't know either. I mean, it was very strange. The greeting caught me off guard because he was so shocked to see her. Like, Elizabeth, you didn't know she was coming home?
I know, isn't that crazy? Sounds like she got an earlier train.
But then she says, "Thank you for sending the cab."
But then he says he didn't. He sent it for Mr. Smith.
So she thought that he knew.
Thought it was for her. And she thought she was offering a ride to this other guy when really he was kind of offering it to her.
That's embarrassing.
A little bit embarrassing. I do love that because at first I was like, oh, this is really awkward. And then Jack got his hands all sticky with the taffy. But in the end, he seemed to very much, even if he is ending up being a creepy, scary guy who had something to do with the mine disaster, I was really happy that he seemed to genuinely enjoy his time with Elizabeth and Jack.
Yeah, I agree. That was sweet. Okay, so I remember way back before the season premiered, you and I talked about the air balloon and how if this isn't a proposal of marriage and he just hired the balloon to come to Hope Valley, that might be a little much.
Well, it doesn't seem like he hired them to come. It sounds like they happened to come.
No, and that's what I mean.
So thank goodness for that.
So I think this was a perfectly good opportunity to take her on a bit of a joyride, to take her on a new adventure, a new experience that she had never tried before. And I don't know if you saw this, but Brian Byrne, he tweeted a picture of MacGyver.
Yes, I did. Oh my gosh. Because yes, of course
I know how to operate an air balloon. Somehow I'm not surprised. MacGyver certified or MacGyver approved or something.
Yeah.
That was classic. Good job, Brian Byrne.
Of course you do.
Of course you do. It reminds me of that old movie from the 90s. It's called The Phantom. And he's an old superhero from the 30s. And he rescues a girl, of course, and he tells her to jump into the seaplane. And she goes, you can fly a plane? And he kind of goes, well, of course you can. Yeah. Why ask? You know, so like, you can operate an air balloon. Of course you can. Why ask? You know. So, but I was really glad that the air balloon was already in town and the air balloon was giving people rides because that would have been a really huge gesture.
So from scenes of the upcoming episodes, it does look like there will be a conversation between the two of them about gestures and about how big gestures are not always necessary and small moments are just as important, if not more. So it looks like that will be addressed, which I think will just help make it more realistic, because even though as a viewer, it's wonderful to see these grand gestures and it gets us all excited and giddy. It also can seem unrealistic if it's happening all the time. So I think it makes it more special if it's less often.
Yeah, agreed. So here's a question for you. What do you think about Lucas selling his stake in the oil company? Because when she said in the preview, "Are you sure?" And he says, "I've never been more sure." I thought he was proposing. And she was saying, "Are you sure?"
No,
And
I didn't think about that.
so what do you think about him selling his oil stake?
So first of all, when he says, "I've never been more sure," I think that he's saying that about the line that he said about her and Jack being the most important thing to him. Not so much that he's never been more sure about selling his stake. Like, I think it was more the whole conversation of, I've never been more sure that the path I want to be on is.
I thought it was kind of a combined deal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I didn't just take it as, I've never been more sure I want out of the oil business.
Oh, no. You know, it was a combination.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think it makes sense. I mean, here you are, this entrepreneur who is, trying to run two businesses and now start a new relationship with someone with a child who you're trying to bond with and create extra connections with. That's a lot on anybody's plate.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's quitting his only job to spend time with her. That wouldn't make sense. But he's just like, I'm burning the candle at both ends. And he was clearly, I don't know what the right word is. He was disappointed. That's not the right word, but it's close. He was very disappointed that there were several times when he wanted to spend time with Elizabeth or Jack and couldn't because of working on this deal.
Yeah.
And it
how
was
disheartened?
Natural. It wasn't like he just randomly was like, I'm going to give this up. It was like there were parts throughout the whole episode that really proved this isn't working. This isn't what he's wanting out of life.
How about disheartened?
That's a good word.
Okay.
Yeah. It really affected him. He didn't want to miss dinner. He didn't want to not walk her home. And yes, there's ways you can just prioritize that. And he did, which great way to open the show. Him prioritize them.
Okay.
Be like, oh yeah, I'll just do that later. You're more important.
When he said that, I was like, big brownie points right there. You say, she tells him, go, you have work. And he says, no, Elizabeth, you and Jack are more important. Work can wait. I kind of went, Lucas Bouchard said work can wait. Okay. Big time brownie points for you, man.
But what made it work was the fact that he initially wasn't going to. Yeah. That's what made that scene work. If he just picked her up and was like, oh, you're here. Well, I'm going to have to call it. I'm just going to call in. I'm not going to go to work the rest of the day. Like that would have been like,
yeah, it wouldn't have worked.
Okay. Like you have a life, but because he was like torn by it and it really was a struggle for him to make that decision. And then he was like, no, it was like he was pushing that away. No, this is my priority. And he was deciding it in that moment. I think that made it more special.
I agree 100%. And for him to realize, this is a big step. This man is coming into a relationship, like you said, with a young child. And so and if he's going to bond with him, then he better stick around, and he better stick around a lot. And so for a single man who is a very entrenched bachelor, shall I say, and also a very wealthy businessman who is used to working with businessmen and used to working with nickels and dimes and numbers. And he says, I'm going to sell my part of this extra company. I don't need that money because I still have a very thriving business at the saloon with the Queen of Hearts. And for him to really see that he needs to make Elizabeth and Jack a priority and then do it, good man. Good man.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a really good scene. What did you think of the scene at Elizabeth's row house when Lucas came by in the morning to bring her paper?
Oh, yes. Okay, so incredibly sweet that he always has time for a kiss. I'm like, that's a man who's speaking my language. You know? However, the clock, Lucas, really?
He's just so go, go, go. He needs to slow down. He just needs to slow down. I think that was the point of that scene. Okay, two things about that scene for me, though. One, he's in her house.
He's in her house. It finally happened. He took the leap over the threshold and he's now in the house.
Maybe that's the first time. So it's the first time he's seen the clock. This really disturbed him. I don't know.
Maybe.
But also, oh my gosh, the goodbye nose kiss.
That was
It was
cute.
adorable.
That was cute. And in the air balloon, when he kind of touches his nose to hers, I love noses. There's something very sweet.
It was just it adds an air of comfort between the two of them. I think that you don't have otherwise when it's just formal kisses. like it just shows how comfortable they are with each other and how much they want to show each other affection.
Yeah. I did wonder if the nose kiss in her home was a little quick. Yeah, I was just like, did you touch her skin? Okay, I think you did. But he, I mean, that's a very real thing. Kiss on the nose and run out the door to work. So, but no, it was precious. It was precious. And and because we're seeing such a deep level of commitment from him at such an early stage, it's good to see the more light-hearted moments, to see that this, not only is this relationship still going to be fresh and lively and sweet, but like you said, comfortable, because he's taking a very giant leap in selling his stake of the oil company. And so to show that level of comfort, that things are going to be okay.
Yeah. And also her line when he says that, and I would never ask you to do that. I was like, yes, you learned from your previous experiences. You cannot ask a man to change his jaw for you.
Because we just got done watching season 2. So
right. I'm like, yes, you learned. You're doing so much better this time.
So much better this time. Okay. And one more thing.
You think the episode's over.
You think the episode's over.
You're like,
not so.
Going off into the sunset. It's so beautiful. Happy note. So what a great premiere.
And then.
Oh.
That shot, the close-up that is so tight on Nathan's face with him pulling up on the reins and gritting his teeth for impact.
That's a really good shot.
It's a really good shot, and it's terrifying.
So as much as I love Nathan, we know he's going to be okay. Like, he's in the whole season. He's a main character. We know he's okay. I'm really worried about Newt, his horse.
Oh, you're worried about Newt?
Well, who knows? Like, he's not a main character. Like, and if a horse gets hit by a car, the rider's up here. Like, the horse gets the brunt of it. Like, I'm like, is the horse okay?
Well, and Nathan's best friend.
And Newton had a fabulous scene this episode when they were on their rounds and Nathan just
talking about
chatting
the
with
car. Okay, so
right, like they're really going to be against the car now.
Incredibly quickly, when did Elizabeth learn how to drive?
Oh, well, so yeah, there's my question. So Dad taught her, but not Julie, because
And
Julie didn't know how to drive and crashed the car in season 2. And also, Elizabeth has an impeccable driving record because you never drive. You live in a town with like 3 cars.
Precisely.
And none of them are yours.
And you saw her in a car when she was hugely pregnant and in the back seat.
So. Yeah. Like other than driving in the back seat in season 2 to get to your house, like we've not seen you ever around a car.
Anyway, back to Nathan.
So yeah. So I do hope that we get to still see that driving lesson someday, because sounds intriguing. So yeah, Nathan and Newton. We're worried about Nathan and Newton.
Into predictions for next week. Do you think that his memory loss is of as far as Allie? Because she is not currently in Hope Valley.
I actually had a thought.
Okay.
I don't know that they would actually do this, but you know how scenes are always misleading.
Oh, of course they are.
I had this thought, and I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, but I have since seen many other people post this thought on Twitter. So I'm not stealing anybody's ideas, but I'm also not saying I was the first one to have the idea.
Yeah.
Because apparently a lot of people have had this idea. Nathan's kind of a kidder.
You think he's kidding?
I think it's possible that she comes up and he heard Faith say something about memory loss and he goes, "Who are you?" And then he goes, "I'm kidding. I know who you are." Like, I'm just in the back of my mind that he is someone who would do that. It would be very, very brief. I don't think he'd carry it on longer than like a split second. But
that would be a very far cry from, "Can Lucas teach me how to drive a car? No, a team of horses." That would be a very far cry from that. You know?
I know. I'm just so I'm not saying he is, but I could see it.
So my thought was if he can't remember who Elizabeth is, maybe he's going to be spared from a lot of pain.
Well, yeah.
Because
I mean, it could just be a short-term thing, but
before he says, "Who are you?" my preview got cut off, so I didn't see the whole preview. So it stopped at Faith saying he may have some memory loss, and then he looks at her, and then it cut. And so number one, I went, "Ah!" But number two, I went, "Oh shoot, is his memory going to go back to when it was going back and forth between him and Lucas and she hadn't made a decision yet?" So I'm glad that
I can't imagine they would do that, first of all, but
I really wanted it to not happen, because if we're gonna let the triangle die, then let it die. That's
I'm sure that's the intent, is to let it move on.
Let it move on.
But yeah, and really, really fast, because I did forget this earlier, I'm very interested to hear more. I'm hoping they cover more about Allie's grandparents that she's visiting. I believe from the wording of some of the comments that it is Nathan's parents, which does that mean they're back together?
Are they back together? I know, lots of questions.
The first comments were just with her grandparents. So I was like, oh, well, maybe it's from her side of the family. Because her dad isn't a great guy doesn't mean that his parents aren't involved ever. But then when Nathan and Elizabeth were talking and she was comparing her time at home and how her family ignored her because they were so busy with little Jack. And he's like, "Yeah, same for me." I was like, oh, well then it's your parents.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's, I hope that they just touch on that. I know we probably aren't going to see his dad again based on the actor's personal health reasons, but
Yeah.
I hope that we can hear kind of what the storyline is, what's happening with them, because that sounds nice that she's able to go see her grandparents and spend time with them
much. Whew.
What an episode.
Everybody take a breath. We made it through the first one. And now
season 9 is here.
Now we just have 10 more to go. Right?
11 more.
My bad. 11 more to go. So, hearties, we will see you back next week for season 9, episode 2. Bye, guys.